Seriously.
Hello everyone and welcome to your Friday edition of the Blood Red podcast, brought to you by the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Theo Squires and the international break is nearly over. Alas, it's FA Cup weekend, so we're still going to have to wait a little bit while longer for Liverpool to be back in action. But we do have plenty to get through today. Joining me, we have our chief LFC writer, Ian Doyle. How are you, Doyley?
I'm okay, but you're doing that high voice thing again. Just
not as high as you went earlier before we started.
No, but that was more of a surprise, whereas you seem to be a little bit taken aback, the fact that you're hosting it. But hello, yes, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. How was your days off?
It was all right. I mean, we've got our special guest here, haven't we?
We do. I'll get to the special guest now. It's a welcome return for the big bird herself, Beth Lindop.
Can you explain that, please? Can you explain that, please?
Explain it.
Yeah, so he's not offending me. Big Bird is my office nickname. Because someone did actually call me Big Bird on a comment one time, and it's just sort of stuck. And my leaving gift to Mr. Ian Doyle was a mug with Big Bird on.
It was, yeah.
Where is your mug?
I know, actually.
I never did the drink today, so
and yours.
Yeah.
Mine's at home because I don't drink hot drinks, do I? So Lizzie uses mine on the regular. Doyley does use his quite regularly in the office. I can confirm he's just been shortchanged today.
Exactly, by Conor O'Neill. You did make me 2 drinks, though, so I can't complain too much. Let's get on with the podcast.
But yeah, 2 of our colleagues took great joy in pointing out yesterday you bumped me, Beth. Because normally you'd be hosting when it was us 3. And I'd be there. But anyway, first things first. Have ESPN sorted you out with the NordVPN subscription?
They haven't, actually. But other than that, life at ESPN has been very good. I do miss everyone here. Miss the people. But yeah, it's all going well. But no, I don't have a NordVPN subscription.
You have to pay special attention to this bit then.
You know that lies make baby Jesus cry, so just don't forget that.
So, to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. How well did you cope reading that out last week? You had hosting duties, didn't you?
It was fairly seamless, wasn't it? Did all right, didn't I? You weren't listening, honestly.
When Doyley had to host and was reading out Nord.
We've given you a mic so you can talk into it, and you weren't listening to what we were saying.
I'm live now, and you were very good.
Thank you.
There we go. We are live on YouTube, so send your questions in. We'll get to them at the end of the show. I've also had a nice email from René Timke from Denmark. Apologies if I've butchered that. I normally do butcher names, so fingers crossed I haven't. But we'll also get to your email at the end. We'll go straight into the big talking point this week for Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold. The reports were breaking, I think, when we were recording on Tuesday that Real Madrid were closing in on him. But we have 2 new faces with us today, so they can both give their opinion. We'll start with Doyley. You're one of a few journalists who have actually been able to speak to Trent about his future this season, back in September. What have you made of the whole scenario?
I don't understand why it's such big news. Don't get it. Literally nothing's changed to what was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, 3 months ago, possibly. Nothing's changed. The only thing that did change is that one is the international break and absolutely nothing's happened. And the second one is that the clock's ticking. It's ticking down to June the 30th when, I presume it's June the 30th, when I think all the contracts run out then, don't they?
They'll probably go a month early, though, because they'll want him to play in the Club World Cup.
Yes, but then they'd have to pay for him.
Yeah.
It's Real Madrid, obviously, who obviously want to sign him because they wanted to sign him in January, and Liverpool said, no, you can't do that. We want him for the rest of the season. And, of course, Trent's now injured, certainly for the next couple of weeks. So I don't get why it became such a big deal. And I also don't understand why people were surprised by it. It's like, what, you might want to go to Real Madrid? It's like, where have these people been? Well, where have they been? That's what the whole thing has been for weeks. And I remember I saw some people who were being critical about journalists you were saying that Liverpool were confident of signing it. So I don't think we've ever said that Liverpool were confident.
Just they're in talks with him still.
It's just saying, yeah. Said if anything, he's the one that they said that they're least confident about because of the situation that he's in his mid-20s, getting towards his peak, certainly traditionally, you'd say 27 to 30. And it's probably a chance for him to move on and for him as a player to be out of contract, he can go wherever he wants. He's not tied to anything. He's not tied to the club's agreeing a deal. He can just go. And he's left himself that option now. I know we're going to get onto it a bit more, but I know that other people who are a bit more learned than we are have been talking about it all this week. But the point is that if Trent doesn't want to sign a contract for Liverpool or any club, then he can't be forced into it no matter how much people offer him. So think it's different with the Salah and Van Dijk stuff for reasons of their age and this, that, and the other. I reckon Liverpool have offered Trent a really good contract, and he's just gone, no, I just want to see what's happening. And obviously, Real Madrid have made the move, which we've known about for 3-4 months officially. And he's got the offer on the table now from the European Super League advocates, as I like to call them. And away you go. I mean, we can get on a bit about Real Madrid and all that kind of stuff, but for now, I just don't understand why people were so surprised. I don't understand why it became a big deal, other than 2 reasons that I mentioned.
Yeah, Beth, it does feel like the writing's been on the wall for a while. You've done a comment this week on it as well for ESPN. What are your takes on everything that's going on?
Yeah, I just think overwhelmingly, like the feeling's just one of sadness, really, because it's not a particularly pleasant situation. I know obviously a lot of fans are really upset about it, and I completely understand the reasons behind fans being upset. I also understand reasons why Trent Alexander-Arnold might want to go to Real Madrid. You know, and that's hard for some fans, I think, to really reconcile with, because he is the local hero, isn't he? And he's said things in the past that have sort of suggested that he has ambitions of captaining the club and wanting to be a bona fide Liverpool legend. And listen, you know, when the dust is settled, he might still be viewed as that. He should certainly, you know, be viewed as someone who's made massive contributions over the past few years. But you know, it will taint his legacy if he goes, for some people more than others. I think, you know, it's a shame. I feel the same with sort of Marcus Rashford at Manchester United. You know, that those are the sorts of players, you don't see it too often now in modern football, where, you know, players come through the academy and break through and stay with that one club for the entirety of the careers. And I think football, you know, it needs that. It needs those emotional stories and those characters that you can sort of latch onto. And, you know, it'd be the same if Saka left Arsenal, for example. Or, you know, I just think it's, you know, it's a bit of a shame. But ultimately, a player's career is finite, isn't it? And if he feels like he needs to go and expand his horizons, I think it's very much, for me, it sort of strikes me if he does go of almost wanting to build his own brand as a celebrity, I guess, more than even a footballer.
We were saying on Tuesday it's very David Beckham to Real Madrid.
Yeah, you know, I think we've seen sort of little things over the past few years in terms of his fashion and you know, things like that, and some of the marketing campaigns he's been a part of. It does very much feel like, I mean, at the end of the day, he is probably in that first generation of footballers that have grown up with footballers as sort of major celebrities. Like, you know, when he was growing up, Beckham was, you know, this big superstar, and maybe, you know, he's not far from the only footballer to feel like maybe that they want to go on and become a brand of their own right, and it's probably easier for him to do that at Madrid. I think in terms of football and ambitions, you know, it's pretty much a guarantee of silverware, whereas even though Liverpool look really poised to go on and compete at the top level for a number of years, you know, silverware is not guaranteed at Liverpool. So, you know, I understand some of the reasons, but I also do understand fans' frustrations and as well as, you know, all the other stuff going on with Salah and Van Dijk. It just sort of increases that sort of sense of tension. But ultimately, it should be a time of celebration for Liverpool, shouldn't it, this next couple of months, if they can get over the line. Which, barring a momentous collapse that they will do, you know, it should be a real time for celebration and enjoyment, and it would be a shame to let all of this stuff taint that.
Dolly is injured at the moment. He's got that ankle injury, which maybe...
You said I was injured at the moment, yeah.
I'm sure you're not.
I probably am. Yeah.
You've had a nice, refreshing international
I'm nearly
break.
50 though, aren't I? So things fall off and stuff.
But yeah, Trent's injured. He's hurt his ankle. Are we any closer to finding out how serious that is? Or?
Well, no, because we haven't seen anyone for 2 weeks.
I wasn't sure if you'd been given the nod or anything. But yeah, what reception do you expect him to get if he does play again? Because obviously the backlash on social media has been toxic, but it can be very different in the stadium itself.
I mean, look, right, okay, let's just address all these things now, because I'm going to get on my old man high horse here. Right. Now, should we do the Real Madrid thing now?
You can go for it.
Real Madrid. Right, you could offer me £100 million a week. I wouldn't sign for Real Madrid. If it was at Liverpool, that is, or Everton, or Man City, or Man United. And I know you're
Producer Ian disagrees over there.
What clubs would you join for?
Real Madrid are a very entitled club. And now I'm going to caveat this with not the players, not the fans, and certainly not the manager. I think Carlo Ancelotti's great. I think you'll agree with me on that one, yeah. I think Ancelotti's funny because he's been manager of Everton, he's been manager of Chelsea, 2 of Liverpool's biggest rivals. He's beaten Liverpool several times in a Champions League final, and still all Liverpool fans go, I really like him. You know, that's the kind of person he is.
Brazil wants him again, though, so he might not even be Trent's manager.
Well, yeah, there's that. But just the way that Real Madrid are, just as an entity, I don't like it. I think they seem to think that they are superior to everyone else, even when for many, many, many years they weren't. And I think what Trent going there, or if he does go there, to be honest, it looks like he will be going there. I think that kind of underlines that people have just bought into this, and it's people on social media and people like that who kind of like the ones who like support Ronaldo and Messi rather than the teams, and they'll always say Real Madrid of this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, you should not having that at all. Anyway, that's another thing entirely. Trent, in terms of the reception he'll get if he plays again, if he doesn't get a good reception, I'd be happy to all those fans just to get out and never come back ever again. I'll be honest.
You've given us the social media clips there.
Yeah,
You've given us a couple there, to be fair.
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, Liverpool are trying to win the league.
Yeah.
And unless I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Liverpool have won the league once in 34 and 3/4 years. And that one time, nobody was allowed to celebrate it. So if you are on the verge of or getting very close to winning the title, why would that not be your concentration? I don't understand why people are so worried now about the future for something that may or may not happen rather than deal with something that's happening today. You know, because let's just say, okay, let's say for argument's sake, Salah and Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold sign new deals on June the 29th. Does that mean that all those fans who were worried didn't have any chance to celebrate anything than winning the league, and then they ended up signing anyway? And then the next season might not win anything. It's like Liverpool haven't won the league hardly ever in the last, in your lifetimes. I've seen it quite a few times. But that should be the concentration, not any of this kind of like, oh, should we be booing Trent when he comes on? If he comes on, if he's playing, if he manages to play between now and the end of the season, do you not think he'll be trying 1,000,000% just to try and win the league? Because it's a trophy for him as well. He's already won one once, and you're going to ask me, is Trent a legend? Well, yeah, in the same way that I also think Michael Owen's won. But then you weren't around, and I don't think you'd remember.
Your Twitter notifications.
I don't care.
Well, 2001. I remember 2001.
He literally, for anybody who was there, Liverpool fan, you asked them, that's one of the best days they've ever had, because no way should Liverpool have won that game.
Smash and grab.
And they ended up winning it. And he had an FA Cup final named after him. And then he became the Ballon d'Or. And again, we go on to Trent. He's a defender, and he's spoken in the past about wanting to win the Ballon d'Or. And again, I think any footballer who looks at that and thinks there's any weight in journalists and other national team managers voting you as some kind of individual, it's just nonsense. I'm not into all of that kind of stuff at all, because it's just so arbitrary.
Ballon d'Or,
that's what I call it. Yeah. Trent is a legend. He's literally, if you're naming the best Liverpool team in my lifetime, he's the right back, right? And I'm nearly 1,000 years old, according to Beth. And that's obviously
nearly half a century.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been some a lot of good Liverpool teams, certainly the first part of that. And I would be amazed if he gets nothing other than celebrated should he get back. Because if he isn't, then, as I've said before, players are allowed to do what they want. I don't think, for me, this won't make any kind of impact on his legacy, because he's been in the team for 8 years. He'll have won, if they win it, 2 of the the championships, the 2 that they've won in 35 years. He'll have won the European Cup, the FA Cup, and basically all of them, hasn't he? And he's played key parts in all of that. And he's played in a style that basically they built the entire team around him, certainly under Jurgen Klopp at the start when he first came in. And he's reinvented a position twice. So it's like, for that, no wonder Real Madrid want to sign him. But I don't think it leaves a bad taste at all, to be honest. I'm just not having it at all. It's like people go out like he's not. I've seen people saying like, yeah, he should never play again for the club, or he's now completely tainted his legacy, or this, that, and the other. He's a disgrace. Well, is he? For me, I wouldn't do what he's doing for all those reasons that I just mentioned before, but that doesn't mean that he can't do it.
I think you've basically just danced around the entire agenda I've got written down here, so I've got to choose which point to go for.
Sorry.
Let's do... Do you want to do social media backlash, Beth? Do you want to speak about that?
I mean, you can never use social media backlash as a barometer for whether someone's made a good decision or not. And, I've seen a few things about people are upset about different things. And obviously one of those things is the fact that he's going on a free. And, I understand the argument. I understand people saying he's a, £70 million asset. And had he signed another contract, whether it be last season or the season before, or even if he'd had a release clause put in, which I know famously Liverpool don't do, but Liverpool could have recouped some money. But then there's the other argument that he didn't cost them anything. So, but I understand that, but I also don't think that there was ever going to be a good way for a player like Trent to leave the club. Again, there's arguments, should he have been more transparent? Should he have come out and spoken a little bit more? Or, but again, would fans have been receptive to that? Certainly fans on social media. I think anyway, if he does leave, any way he goes about it, I think he'd face criticism for one reason or another. I'd slightly disagree with my esteemed colleague here in the sense that, I do think it taints his legacy slightly.
It's okay to be wrong.
But I think I was watching the not to promote a rival, I was watching the Stick to Football podcast the other day, and there was an interesting segment with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, and Gary Neville was suggesting that Trent isn't as loved as Carragher and Gerrard are.
That's
by
absolutely
Liverpool
rubbish,
fans,
by the way.
which is total rubbish, and it's a pointless argument because one of the main reasons, obviously, Gerrard was enormously gifted, as was Carragher. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made that many appearances for Liverpool. But obviously, Gerrard is a kind of unique case. But for both of them, one of the main reasons that they're so adored is because of their loyalty to the club, and that's where Trent, I think, will go down in a few people's estimations. But that isn't to say that, he's not entitled to go on and try something new. And look, if he goes and has 5 years in Madrid, he could win, 3 Champions League titles, 4 La Liga titles. I agree with Doyle, he'll never win the Ballon d'Or because I don't think a defender will ever win it. And ultimately, if he were to win the Ballon d'Or, it would mean that, Madrid had done really well, in which case it would probably go to Bellingham or it would go to Mbappe or Vinicius. So
the only way he wins it in that team is if they move him into midfield.
I think the most telling thing really about this whole thing is that interview that he gave to Sky earlier in the season when he said that he was given, I think, 5 options to pick from. It was captain in Liverpool, winning another Champions League, winning a trophy with England, or winning the Ballon d'Or. And sort of without hesitation, he went for winning the Ballon d'Or. And it was sort of controversial at the time, and you look back on it now and you think, I can't think of many footballers that would, even if they felt that way, would openly admit to that. Even Mo Salah this season, he's been asked that question a lot, and he's sort of every time batted it away with, I want to win team trophies first, and that I'm sure Mo Salah would love to win the Ballon d'Or, but if you win, I know a lot of Liverpool fans aren't fans of England, but if you won a trophy with your country, with England, haven't won anything for 70 years, you'd be an absolute legend. So I to me, that mindset, that way of thinking is slightly something that I can't quite get on board with, and probably speaks to the fact, again, he wants to build his own brand and enhance his reputation rather than, I guess, becoming a god in sort of Liverpool folklore. But again, who are we to sit and judge him decided not to do that?
If you want to ask the question about whether it taints his legacy on, and I know somebody put something in the corner, wasn't even taken that quickly as a joke on social media.
And then Robertson's been photoshopped in his hole.
So you're telling me people watch highlights of that and it comes to that bit and they just go, oh, this isn't as good now because he left to join Real Madrid. Absolute begins with a B and rhymes with Rolex.
Frolics.
I gave you a get out there.
That's what I think, and I think over time, people it's down to how you feel. Go back to the Michael Owen thing again. Anyone who's there and they watch that and they just go, "Oh, Michael Owen went on to play for Real Madrid and Newcastle, Manchester United." They don't go, "Wow, it wasn't that good." That's it. So it's not going to taint his legacy, no.
We'll bring on Owen and McManaman now. It works both ways in terms of they weren't loyal, but you look at the situation Liverpool were in at that time. They needed to go elsewhere to go for the Champions League, and it just didn't work out for Michael Owen. Trent's won absolutely everything. I can see the argument for go and win it all again with Liverpool, but Liverpool have won 1 Champions League. Real Madrid have won, 4 in the same period since he's made his debut. It is another stratosphere.
Well, also, the other thing is that from Trent's point of view, he's been at the club for a very long time, and almost all of his senior playing career, was under Jurgen Klopp, and then there's been a change of manager. They don't really know. Well, he didn't know last year certainly how the season was going to pan out. None of us did. Let's face it, nobody thought they'd be 12 points clear at this stage of the season. I'd be amazed if many people thought they'd be top or even challenging as strongly as they have been, because it would have been an accepted drop off given the changes that were happening. But the changes haven't happened, have they, in terms of the playing staff, because almost everybody stayed. And I think that's obviously going to come in the summer. It's whether or not he just thinks that's a nice, natural way just to end things. And I understand the arguments about the free transfer, but Liverpool could have got a fee for him if they sold him last year, but then why would they do that? You know what I mean? You're right, saying there's no good way to leave, but Ian Rush left to join Juventus, and I know that's slightly different because there was no European football for Liverpool at the time. And Michael Owen left again. Benitez had just come in and he thought possibly time for a change. Real Madrid are there. Steve McManaman, when he left, Liverpool weren't very good. Let's be honest.
Well, he'd said on Aldo's podcast, didn't he, that the way Roy Evans, they got rid of him, that made his mind up.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, Houllier had come in, hadn't he? So that was the first season under Houllier. And of course, McManaman went on and won 2 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid and scored in the final, scored a very good goal. And I think Owen was slightly caught up. He became a victim of the Galacticos thing because he actually did all right in that one season that he was there, but they just went, well,
he got homesick as well, didn't he?
Yeah, we want to go in a different direction, and they sold him on, and he did come back to Liverpool, but Liverpool couldn't afford him, so he ended up going to Newcastle. So I don't necessarily, I know obviously Ian Rush came back after a year anyway, so I don't, there are different circumstances. The Trent one is unique because none of those apply to him. So as you mentioned, he's literally won everything you can win at Liverpool, and I just, as I said before, just thinks it's a natural way to leave. And we haven't mentioned Jude Bellingham properly so far, have we? I mean, he's obviously been tapped him up for a long time, and not that it's weird. Again, this goes back to what I was saying before about Real Madrid. They don't need to tap up players because all the fans of the idea of Real Madrid do it for them because they've now ingrained that into so many people being brought up. And I've got no time for this because, well, again, it'd be a completely different podcast and I'd get into a lot of trouble with some of the stuff I'm about to say. But that's just my own personal view. All the views are available.
We know all the honours Liverpool have won since Trent made his debut, so I'll just run through what Real Madrid have won in the same period, because I wrote that this week, and it did hit home what he will be signing up for. 4 La Liga titles, 4 Champions League.
Should have won most of them, though.
4 Club World Cups or Intercontinental
Cup.
Cup.
They don't count for Real Madrid
still
anyway.
Champions of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, but they always seem to end up playing somebody really rubbish, whereas Liverpool end up playing good teams. Anyway, go on.
3 European Super Cups, the Copa del Rey, and 4 Supercopa de España. This year, they're on for a quadruple because you've got the new revamped Club World Cup.
Now, that is nonsense.
They're, second on goal difference in La Liga. They're through to the Champions League quarterfinals, and I think they're in the semis of the Copa del Rey. It is guaranteed success with Real Madrid. This team, it's so young, such talented players. Like Liverpool, you're battling City, you're going to come back. You're battling Arsenal, will come back. I can see why he would want to go. It's just, that's not the message he sold to Liverpool over the last 8 years. The scouts are in the team. This was supposed to be his dream.
Yeah, but dreams change, and having fulfilled his dream of playing for Liverpool for 8 years, of winning everything with Liverpool, maybe he wants a new dream, and it's obviously very different in sort of normal life because most people aren't earning the amount of money that he's earning and don't get to do what they love for a living. But most people don't stay at the same company for their entire lives. People do want changes of scenery, whether they be financial reasons behind it, whether it just be that they want something new. And I understand people probably won't take kindly to that because, as I say, it's a very different situation when you're a footballer. But I just think I completely agree with Ian. Sort of, I wouldn't want to go to Real Madrid. But
no, that's 2 now. That's 2.
I think Madrid's greatest thing is
you want to go to Crewe, don't you?
They've managed to sort of cultivate this aura, whereby people just go, "Oh well, it's Real Madrid, isn't it?" And it's very easy to go, "Oh, well, it's Real Madrid," and I've done it myself talking about Trent. But actually, would I want to play for them? Not really. I think I'd rather play for Barcelona. I think Trent has said that himself in the past, actually, in an interview, that he feels Barcelona's closer to Liverpool in terms of what the club stands for and the history and the values and everything like that. I think, I saw an interview the other day with, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, Guillem Balaguer?
Guillem Balaguer.
Yeah. And he was trying to rationalise it, and his point was that Liverpool fans should actually be quite pleased that Trent's going on to play for Real Madrid because...
Says the Spanish journalist, what a shock.
It's an opportunity...
He doesn't support Real Madrid, actually. But
it's an opportunity for, a local, for a Scouser to fulfil his childhood dream of playing for the team that were always on telly, and I don't buy into that. I don't think Trent's dream growing up was playing for Real Madrid. Bellingham's might have been, but him and Bellingham are in very different situations. Bellingham could
Trent
never
was being the next Gerrard.
Yeah, Bellingham could never achieve what he wanted to achieve or achieve his potential at Birmingham. That's just, the way the sort of football ecosystem is. Trent could with Liverpool, and that's the difference. And that is also the difference with the McManaman thing, because McManaman went for success when Trent could have success at Liverpool. So I can't even remember what the initial question was. I've just waffled on.
You mentioned then about having the chance to do it at Liverpool. You've got to bear in mind that when he got into the Liverpool first team, Liverpool had just lost the Europa League final and had finished 8th, I think it was.
Yeah, because they went all in on Europe.
Yeah, so it's like this wasn't a Liverpool team at the time that was challenging for all these honours. I mean, admittedly, it was only like 18 months down the road and they were in the Champions League final, and the following year they won it, etc., etc. So he's been a large part of
turning that around,
making his own dream happen. And it's a little bit like, if you're... I'm trying to think of another thing, because obviously journalism, this doesn't count, but there are certainly in the arts, there are certain things, or the creative industries, although having read some of Theo's stuff, that's very creative, certainly his intros. I think that they have certain dreams, like they have certain landmarks, and Trent has realised his dream at Liverpool. He's done it. And then the point he's going to make is then when you do that, you go, well, where can I go from here?
He was so young when he's completed it as well.
Yeah, it's like, where can I go from here? It's not like he's like, say like Gerrard never won the league at Liverpool. I'm not sure whether you noticed that. You won't take kindly from me saying that. I reminded him of the fact. But that was always the kind of driving force for him. And all players, the great myth is that some players don't try. I'm talking about Trent here, I'm just talking generally now, that but some people say players, they weren't trying in that game. That's nonsense. They've always got to try because their other teammates would call them out. But in terms of motivation, maybe Trent he's literally done it all. So now I want to have an extra motivation, or different motivations, about a better way of putting it. And that's the same, sorry, as you were saying before, that that's the same for players who move clubs. It's like Xabi Alonso, he went to Real Madrid, but people sort of accepted that a bit more because A, they got a fee for him, and B, he's Spanish. But was that his dream when he was growing up in?
I always thought he'd be more of a Barcelona player than a Real Madrid.
But the point is, then he even left them, went to Bayern Munich.
I think as well with Real Madrid, it's like Ian mentioned there. It wasn't so long ago that Liverpool were. I mean, they were in the Europa League last season, weren't they? And it's easy, even though they've done so well under Arne Slot, it's easy to see a world where, whether it be because of injuries or transfers not working out or just a little bit of a blip, they may have the odd season where they're back to challenging for top four and they don't progress too far in the cup competitions and things like that, because that's sort of a bit of a cyclical thing that happens sometimes. For Liverpool, with Real Madrid, that never really happens. They're always sort of competing. They're always there or thereabouts. If they lose out on the La Liga title, it's usually only by a thin margin.
And then they'll go win the Champions League that year.
And that's this season. Liverpool have been miles better than Real Madrid. Miles better domestically. The sort of the body of work that Liverpool have got this season is miles better than Real Madrid's. They absolutely schooled them at Anfield earlier in the season. I know they had a few players missing, but
Trent was missing.
Yeah,
on the bench, wasn't he?
But there's still every chance that they'll go on and win the Champions League, and that is Real Madrid in a nutshell, isn't it? They can be sort of underwhelming, they can be subpar, they can muddle through, find a way through. I mean, the way they've got through to the is it the quarterfinals now, the Champions League?
I can tell you switched off as soon as Liverpool got knocked out.
There's not any other club in world football, I feel, who would get through to a Champions League quarterfinal in the way that they did with that whole penalty situation, and that's just, they've just got this sort of magic touch that I'm not quite sure anyone can replicate, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it is just that whole narrative that has been built up that they are Real Madrid and they're inevitable and they always find a way.
Which is why, like me, you don't buy into that, and then they'll get their comeuppance eventually if you all think like me.
So everyone needs to think like Ian Doyle.
100%.
Heard it here first.
Because we'll start with Ian Kroll, who seems to think he wants to spend the rest of his career with Real Madrid. Why would you want to join Real Madrid?
Because he's growing up watching
Why
Everton.
would you want to join Real Madrid? Let's bring our producer Ian in.
As a footballer?
Yeah.
For the glitz and the glamour and the
there
trophies?
You go. The glitz and the glamour. You're a footballer, not a celebrity.
If you were a footballer, if you're a footballer and you were offered £100 million a year to play for Liverpool, would you?
Absolutely.
Would you?
Well, yeah, why not?
So we've done,
I'd accept £100
Can we
million
clip
for
this up?
United.
nice little insight into
100%.
people's
Wouldn't even think
mindset
about
there.
it. There's only Real Madrid that I wouldn't go to. I'd just go with everybody else.
Um,
I'm such a mercenary.
Trent is.
Would you go PSG?
We just gonna list every European club.
I've just,
now.
yeah. I'd go to, yeah.
Would you go to Saudi?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just Real Madrid.
Yeah.
How much of this with Trent is because he's the scouser on the team? Even if he was a Liverpool fan, but from London like Harvey Elliott, is the backlash different?
Yeah, because for all those reasons that we've just stated, it's always harder for a local player to come in. You mentioned before about Carragher and Gerrard. I can guarantee you that Carragher in particular for many years wasn't regarded as that.
He said that
for
himself.
He said that
Liverpool.
himself,
Yeah. For a long time. Probably was only really in the Champions League in 2005.
That's exactly what he said.
He
on
did it,
Stick
yeah,
to Football.
exactly. There
He
you
said
go.
he only,
There you go.
got a song when he was 27.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is that, and that's why it is so difficult for local players coming through. It's the same at Everton. Same at Everton. You look at Franny Jefferson players like that. They've had, there's a certain different expectation because they're seen to be representing the people who couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Which is why they cannot see why a player would want to go somewhere else because they go, well, my entire dream is doing this, that, and the other. But until you've actually gone and done it, and don't forget, the career of a footballer, it's the old cliche, is actually quite short. You know, I've been a journalist for
50.
trying to do maths, 28 years. I'm pretty sure there's no.
How old are you,
football.
Beth?
25.
You've got 28 months, yeah. Right. So 28 years, yeah, 28, yeah, 28 this summer, and there's no footballer. Well, maybe James Milner might be 28 years or Buffon or someone like that. In fact, there is somebody still knocking around, but they don't last for that long. And then they have a big change where they actually drop out of football or become, coach, trainer, whatever have you, or move into that kind of thing, or pundit. That seems to be the other thing these days. So I can see any player wanting to maximise it, but going back to your point, yeah, it's always different for a local player because for those reasons, whether it's Liverpool, you mentioned Rashford, United, be interesting to see what happens with Phil Foden at Man City eventually, see what happens there. And, there's players all the way, every single club's got these players. It just so happens that not every single club. And I think what people forget, point you were trying to make, I think, is that Real Madrid are actually direct rivals to Liverpool. They've literally played them in 2 Champions League finals in the last seven years.
Knocked out in a couple of years.
Exactly,
Time
so
as
they play each other quite a lot. It just happens that Real Madrid have won most of them. Not all of them, they've won most
It's just
of them.
unfortunate for Liverpool at the one time that they did beat them. It's, it's part of a body of work where they were excellent in that league phase and they've still ended up being knocked out before them. It's very, very Real Madrid, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if Real Madrid lost to Arsenal, to be honest.
That's not what you were saying a few months ago. You were saying Real Madrid can finish 24th and they'll still win it.
Yeah, which they probably will do. But I'm saying is that Arsenal can beat Real Madrid in the same because Liverpool have beaten them. In the same way, I actually think Aston Villa might do PSG, but then that's a completely, that's a different
sure
kettle
on
of
that
fish.
one.
You have some very interesting football predictions. Like, what was the Manchester United one?
I was right on that one. I said,
Was it Gorsty who was wrong?
He was
Sorry.
Gorsty was wrong. He said they had no chance of beating Real Sociedad, and so I won a fire off him.
What was the one that you said that was mad? It was with Lynchy, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, you don't remember the ones you lose.
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. I just
Wasn't
think
it Tottenham would score in the semi-final
No,
second leg?
that
That
was it. Yeah. It was hardly the world's most outrageous comment to make. Anyway, going back to the real world, with Trent, it is tougher for a local player, and I just think that ultimately, for all the hoo-ha and everything, from the start of next season, if Trent's not there, Liverpool would have bought a right back, and whoever that right back is, at the end of his time at Liverpool, he will either leave on a free transfer or get a transfer fee, or retire.
Would he go to Real Madrid?
And if he's any good, you can imagine Real Madrid might want to come in for him.
There's a few in the current squad they've been linked with, isn't
Exactly,
there?
yeah. And the thing is, Liverpool, the worrying thing for Liverpool is they are losing a player to what I would regard a direct rival. That's the thing for me.
We'll go through some of the comments now because they're not necessarily questions, but this is a debate. So let's hear from the
The
people.
comment section,
You
not
brace
the question
ourselves.
section. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Being Human says, yes, Trent is a legend. That corner.
Thank you.
Insert coin, says, no, and nobody on here can tell me how to feel.
No, it's completely right. Are these wrong?
He does agree with someone called Paul Lee who says Ian Doyle makes some very interesting points, which I have to agree with about Real Madrid.
Yes, good. I'm going to convert everybody by the end of this.
Wolves 76 brings up Phil Neal, who says he was a much better defender than Trent and he got bombed out disgracefully. A few people saying Trent can't defend.
Trent obviously can defend. He literally played for a team that won all those competitions. Do you think like they just went, oh, well, it's just all Van Dijk that's done that on the other defenders? Absolute nonsense. Phil Neal, interesting shout, but he was towards the end when I was watching it, so I can't judge him off that.
Brace said he lost respect for Trent when he did the shush celebration at West Ham.
I do think that was slightly unnecessary.
Who was it aimed at?
Well, that's the thing, because now it's being interpreted as well. It's that Liverpool fan, which I don't think it was, but it's just the sort of thing you think.
It could have just been like, everybody just shut up and get on with my job.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is what I say in the
I was
office.
going to say, do you walk through the office like that?
Paulie does actually have a question. He goes, do the panel think that Trent's in a fishbowl and he needs a bigger tank or pond to show what he can do without the English newspaper and pundit criticism?
What?
Even though the Spanish press are worse.
The Spanish press are worse. Yeah, they'll absolutely just dissect him within an inch of his life, basically. So I think that if you think it's bad over here, but then I don't necessarily think it is that bad if you just don't go on your phone.
I think
everything's okay.
He hasn't tweeted since December,
Yeah.
so maybe he is not looking at the
Just
mentions.
I think
go
it
on
will
your
be
phone.
interesting to see how sort of the narrative from some people in like the national media changes toward him, because we know when he's gone on England duty in particular, his defending has been clipped up and analysed to the nth degree, and anyone who's watched him for Liverpool would say that any slight deficiencies he might have at times with his defending, he more than compensates for going forward. But I think it feels like Liverpool fans have maybe had to defend him a little bit at times. So it'll be interesting to see if he's not in a Liverpool shirt, will the wider perception of him change? And maybe that is one of his...
That's a very good point, actually, because...
Thank you.
Just because he... I don't know. How long have we been working together? We don't work together anymore, and it's taken this long for you to come up with a good point. It's the old thing. Again, go back to Real Madrid. A player joins Real Madrid and automatically become a better player. Is it because it's all about perception? Nonsense, just deal with the facts.
Dunbar 91 wishes Trent all the best. He's paid what he's owed for us. He's won the lot. He's a young lad. Go and try something new. We'll finish on something that I think we can all get on board with from Rod, who's tuning in from Australia, I think.
Truth.
I actually don't care.
I actually don't. Well, we do care. We just spent the last 35, 40 minutes talking about it.
So, definitive answers now. Is Trent a Liverpool legend? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does going taint his legacy?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now we will move on to a few of the other players in the Liverpool squad who are being linked with moves away. This can be...
None of them left at this rate.
It can be quick fire or you can debate a little. I suppose we do need to get our money's worth out of Beth, so talk for as long as you
Wow.
want.
Wow. We never managed it when she worked here.
Very good, very good.
Some of these, I'd imagine, will be quite more straightforward than others. We'll start with Kelleher. Stay or go?
He's going.
He's going.
I'd like him to say, but he will go.
Joe Gomez.
He's staying as far as I'm aware.
You reckon?
Well, why? If you're... I mean, okay, if you're Liverpool, you want him to keep him, yeah.
Yeah, stay.
Okay. Jarell Quansah, was linked with
Stay.
Newcastle this week.
Stay.
Virgil van Dijk, obviously with the contract.
Yeah, I think he might be staying, yeah.
Yeah.
Stay. This has been quite positive so far.
Yeah.
I've thrown the next two in together because I'd imagine one of them will go. Robertson and Simicast.
I think Simicast might go if someone comes in
Yeah,
for him.
I think Robertson.
I
I think Robertson will take on more of a supporting role next season, but I think he'll stay.
I think Simicast has also reached the stage in his career where he should go and play for a slightly lesser team and play a lot. He's deserved it.
Robertson will be quite good behind the scenes next year as well, especially if they lose Trent. They're going to need a leader in the camp still. Endo.
Did you write something on that?
I'm not sure, have I?
You did. You did the
Yeah,
leadership
yes, I
grid.
did. It went up this morning.
Honestly.
Yeah, I didn't go on the Robertson detail though. Endo.
I keep him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he left.
Ditto. I'd hand him a lifetime contract, to be honest.
Did you see that he's been replaced
on
Trent
his
on the
mural?
way?
Yeah. No, I think he's. I wish he'd been used more this season.
Yep, I agree. 100%. That's twice now.
course.
I know, yeah.
But maybe we should have just stopped working together early. That would have been.
I'd have gone with that.
Yeah, but I completely agree with Mr. Doyle. Yeah.
Harvey Elliott.
Oh, I'd definitely keep him. 100%.
Yeah, because I don't think he'll push for a move. I think he'll want to stay.
And he's another one that should have been used more often this season.
Yeah.
Darwin Núñez.
He's definitely going.
Yeah.
Federico Chiesa.
Now, that's interesting, that. I keep him.
I would also keep him. Again, another player I wish had been used more, but I think he will go.
Yeah, I think he'll go as well.
He could get an important role in the run-in, to be fair.
Yeah.
He did all right, didn't he? He's the only player who's not had international football during the break.
He's also
So it's
the
gonna
only
be
player who
fresh.
scored in a final for Liverpool this season.
Aside
Not many have
from-
scored in the finals in recent years.
Aside from the Plymouth game where everyone was absolutely dreadful, pretty much every cameo that he's made, he's looked decent. He's
He was good
either
against
scored
PSV, wasn't
or
he?
he's done pretty well. So
Brentford, he was only on for a little bit. He
Yeah.
did all right there, yeah.
so I'd like to see more of him.
Diogo Jota.
Go.
If a decent offer comes in, I think they might look to sell him, and I think he might look to go. I think it all depends. We know that Liverpool want a number 9, and I always think what happens, because we're pretty sure Nunes is going. What happens with Jota will dictate what direction the team's going in up front. I should make a mental note of that and write that at some point next.
We'll get Pruzzi to write that down.
Yeah. You got pen and paper? Do you still have pen and paper? Yes, nice one. Thank you.
Luis Diaz.
He's going. Provided they got someone to replace him.
Yeah, I think he'll go. But then again, it sort of looked like a dead cert. He was going to go last summer with all the noise that was building in the lead up to the summer, and he didn't. So
I think he would have done it. Anthony Gordon signed. And they did look to move
But the
him
thing is, where does he go? Because obviously Barcelona is the one that keeps getting mentioned. But would Barcelona?
You sell him and
Does
Nunes
this-
to Saudi for
Yeah,
150.
Saudi. I mean, if I was him, I wouldn't go to Saudi. Again, that's another
the
Real Madrid
thing.
thing.
To players, it's easy to say, to play it like Saudi will take him. Does he want to go to
The
Saudi?
South Americans are more open to it.
But how old is he? 28.
It's not that. I mean, I honestly don't think. I don't understand why Nunes would go there yet.
Yeah, I don't. Same with John Duran. I have no idea why he went. I have an idea, but I don't particularly.
He's at the other end of his career, isn't he? So he's probably thinking 2 years here, I'll make a fortune, and then I'm still only 23, 24, and I can get myself a good move to Europe again.
And we've got one player left. Can you guess who it is?
I think that Gakpo will stay. Yeah,
Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, right, he's staying for me.
yeah. I think I'd be surprised if he leaves.
It's interesting with the forwards because there's going to be that knock on there because we're saying 5 of the six have question marks over them, but surely not going to let 4 or 5 of them go. So if Nunes goes, that could be a reprieve for Jota. Same for Chiesa. It's all going to have that knock-on effect
Well, I'm
for each
about to
other.
write a piece saying if you can make a really good Liverpool team, but a team that probably finished in the top 6 or top 4, just from all the players who were supposedly leaving. You might have been mentioning Canati.
Yeah, I just assume we're going to see him stay and then see out his contract.
But again, you're going to end up in the situation that you're going to have with Trent, Salah and Van Dijk, aren't you? Because he'll be in the last year of his contract. So they need to really sort something out this summer. I don't think they'll want to... Again, going back to we spoke about Jota, I think what happens with Canati this summer will dictate how Liverpool going forward, how they're going to do things, whether they're quite happy to let people run down their contracts or not.
I think it is the first summer in a long while where you could genuinely make a case for 6 or 7 players moving on, whether that be through them wanting to go or whether it be through them maybe being surplus to requirements. And it's quite hard to see Liverpool.
Not bad for a Premier League winning
Well,
squad,
they're about
is
to
it?
say exactly the same
Yeah.
thing. It just seems it is borderline insane that normally when a team is going to win the league, it's with a new manager, it's the start of something new. But the reality is because they didn't sign anybody last year, the reason they're doing so well is because it's the same team as last year, but with a different viewpoint in terms of the manager.
I also think as well, like Liverpool for 3/4 of the season have been excellent. And unfortunately for them, they've had a slump at sort of the worst possible time. And obviously, on the back of that slump, it's been the international break. It's not even been a slump really, because they were good against PSG at Anfield. Obviously, it was terrible in the cup final, but so that's sort of the enduring memory. And because it's been the international break, it's very easy to sit and say, oh well, he's not good enough or they're not good enough. When actually, the only reason Liverpool are in the position that they're in is because of these players and what they've done for the majority of the season.
We'll get to that email now I mentioned earlier from Renee Timker. He goes, "Hi Theo, I'm from Denmark and have listened to the Blood Bread podcast most weeks over the last 4 to 5 years. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh man.
I always find your discussions on LFC very entertaining and interesting. I'm sure that is more entertaining when Ian Doyle is on. My question for you is, can you see any Danish players joining Liverpool this summer? And he gives us a few to consider. He is from Denmark, so that's why he's asking about Danish players.
Thanks, Theo. I'd never guessed.
I'm just clarifying for the audience. Mikael Damsgaard is probably the star name on here, and Morten Frendrup. There's a few others. But it's an interesting position to find yourself in, like Danish players. Do clubs really care about nationality? If you're good enough, they sign someone. Like Damsgaard's a very good player. I've liked what he's done this year for Brentford, but Liverpool's midfield is very, very strong. It's probably the one position they don't need someone.
In terms of fans, yeah, but in terms of actually signing players, look how many Danes are at Brentford. Why would that be?
It's the ownership, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then
also the
scouting.
Yeah, exactly. And look how many players Liverpool have signed from Germany over the past 2 or 3 years, 4 years. Why would that be? Look how many players Liverpool have linked with from Holland over the past 12 months. Why would that be? And so on. So Liverpool have historically looked at, as a bit recently, German market when Benitez was there, it was the Spanish market. When Julio was there, it was the French market. When Hodgson was there, it was anywhere but anyone good. Actually, that's not very fair.
But Christian Poulsen, he signed a Danish player.
Raul Morales, he was a good player. Joe Cole, unfortunately, had kind of gone past his best by that point. I think it doesn't matter where they're from, but I think just obviously historically, who you have looking after your recruitment and who your manager or head coach is will dictate sometimes where you're looking, which is why we'd be. I would imagine Liverpool will be looking at Italy, Bournemouth. That's why these links happen. The reason these links happen for a reason is because it's about relationships. It goes back to what we spoke about years ago, what Michael Edwards and he was seen as this kind of this, that, and the other. He's the data man and all that, and they use the numbers. But all of that means nothing unless you've got the relationships that can actually deal with other human beings and they've got the contacts and people actually like dealing with you and you're quite easy to deal with and you can get, deals over the line. And that's what it's all about, really. So that's why I would expect Liverpool would still be looking at Germany. They will be looking at Bournemouth players. Then they will be looking at links to whatever Richard Hughes and Arne Slot I've got.
There is an interesting bit in Ian Graham's book, I think, where he's talking about they liked... was it Janssen, the centre-back who was at Leeds and Brentford? Visser, I think he came from Denmark, even though he's not Danish. But it's like they need to go to that middle club. They need to go to a Brentford, a Brighton. Liverpool are in a much stronger position than, say, a Manchester United, who do seem to be signing quite a few Danes at the moment in Højlund, Dorgu, and already had Eriksson, so that probably plays in a part as well.
Oh, so there's that. And I also think it's quite interesting, just going back to Real Madrid again, my favourite topic, is that Liverpool, Man United and Real Madrid were all in for Lenny Yoro last summer. And Liverpool would have signed but couldn't offer him the guaranteed minutes. Man United were happy to sign him and could offer him minutes, hence why he's going. But I'm pretty sure that Real Madrid wanted to do their normal thing of just wait and go, we're not going to give you any money, we're just going to wait another year because you're out of contract at the end of the season. And I think Yoro went, no, I'd rather go now. And I think that's kind of an example of, I think they wanted to sign Alphonso Davies, didn't they? And he ended up signing a contract. And now he's done his leg, his knee anyway. So that's unfortunate for him. But it doesn't always work for Real Madrid. And, you can stand up to them. And you don't necessarily have to go to them all the time.
I think that is probably the crux of why a lot of fans aren't too happy about the free transfer thing is, you look at players that they've sort of lured from clubs on free transfers in the last few years. Obviously, Mbappe is the obvious one, but that saga was so convoluted and they tried to get him so many times. And, there was Rudiger before that who had no sort of real affinity with Chelsea beyond, having played for them for a good few years. So
and
I think
a really bad reveal video as well. Do you remember that one? Rudiger in the club shop.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember him being particularly good for Chelsea either, to be honest.
There was a phase when he was sort of being ridiculed quite often for his defending, but all of a sudden he's now, because he plays for Real Madrid, is...
Well, there you go. Amazing how this pod's come around full circle.
It's players...
It's almost as though we planned it.
It's players like Alphonso Davies, like Kimmich, players who've been linked with moves away, who've sort of resisted that pull, and the fact that Trent, as a local lad, who you would anticipate would maybe be more sort of receptive to saying no, hasn't. I think that's what the issue is for a lot of people.
Well, let's be honest, if Liverpool could sign a player like Trent from a free transfer, they just sign him, you know what I mean? So
that's the thing. I mean,
well, could we see it in 5 years' time? 31-year-old come back to his boyhood club?
Never go back. That's what I'd say to that. Unless you've been away for a very short amount of time.
It's almost as though we planned that as well.
Yeah. Get that on a t-shirt.
That's also a reference to you. Please don't come back.
That's all we've got time for today. I think we've probably kept Beth long enough. I'm sure you've got plenty of work to do it for ESPN.
Do you reckon she's earned her money?
I don't know. We'll leave that in the hands of producer Ian. Is Beth going to be welcome back?
Are you going to withhold the payment?
No, Beth will be paid.
Thank you.
She can breathe a sigh of relief. Thanks
How
as
many
all.
more podcasts have you got today? About 15. You are quite a regular on the pod
I've only
circuit
got
these days.
More today,
Only one more, yeah.
No, Gorsty's on one today as well, isn't he? Is he doing Red Men today?
Yeah, but he's off today. Me and you have to do work. Beth just works.
Goes podcast to
What do you
podcast,
do?
flitting
What do
around
you do? Sorry.
Merseyside.
Absolute cheek.
But yes, thanks as always for joining us, for your questions, and thanks to Dorley and Beth for joining me. Hopefully we'll see you again soon, Beth.
Yeah.
If you're only just joining us, yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a Liverpool legend. but watch the rest of the podcast episode to realise why we came to that conclusion.
Don't join Real Madrid.
And don't join Real Madrid. We'll be back on Monday where we can finally look forward to a Liverpool match again after 2 weeks. It feels so much longer, doesn't it?
Feels like a year, doesn't it?
But yeah, thanks and goodbye.